The step up from 10K to a half marathon is one of the biggest leaps in running. It is your introduction into long distance running, and it's going to be where you're going to have to start considering things like carb loading and tapering. And I know it might sound daunting, but don't worry, because I have 13 top tips that I will be giving you, one for each mile, that will help you. And these tips will apply whether it's your first or your 50th, and I'll also be putting in some extra tips throughout the video, so make sure you stay tuned for those too. Okay, so first up, what is actually motivating you to run a half? Running a half marathon can often be about seeing how far you can push your body or doing something bigger than you've done before. But what is your reason? Having a goal will help you structure your training and find your paces. So before you start your training, think about what your goal is, why you're running the race, and write it down so you don't forget it. Top tip, choose a race that is right for you. Whether that's a race abroad or somewhere local, so you know the local area, pick one that makes you feel like you want to get to that finish line, especially if you're looking to complete rather than compete. So for me, I'd always choose a race in a country that I really want to visit, because the best way to see a country or a city is on foot. My next tip is to build in enough time. Training for a half marathon compared to a 10K will require a lot more time. It is a massive step up, and you will feel that increase in distance. So the one thing I would say is to make sure you've put in enough time into your schedule so that you can utilize your time wisely. You may have to be a bit ruthless in creating space in your schedule, but here are a few tips about how to fit running into your busy routine. Run your commute or part of your commute. Adding in a couple of run commutes a week could cover those easy runs, giving you more time to focus on your speed sessions and long runs. Lunchtime. Why not run with some of your colleagues at lunch? Or if you work from home, take a quick lap around the park or on your lunch break. Even a short lunchtime run once a week could help make some space for an easy run. Plus, it is great for taking a break and boosting your productivity. Reduce your scrolling. I know finding time is hard, but be honest with yourself. What is your actual daily screen time? One thing to do in the morning is to stop your doom scrolling and get up straight out of bed. Don't snooze your alarm. This could be a great way to start your day, and a top tip is put your clothes out from the night before so you don't have to stumble around in the morning in the dark trying to find them. So now that you've made time in your schedule, it's time to build a training plan based on your pace and goals. I'm gonna get running, so let's go. Your half marathon pace is going to be slower than your 10K pace. It's not going to be double what you can hold for a 10K, because firstly, you need to account for the extra 1 point something K that you're going to be running the half for, and secondly, it's going to be a pace that you need to be able to sustain for over double the time. So you want to make sure that you get your pacing on point for your half marathon to avoid hitting the wall during the race. There are a lot of pace calculators that you can use online to help you find a pace that is sustainable and suitable for you. It's really useful to know your pace going into race day, as that can help as well in your training. You might also want to consider adding some walking into your race day strategy. This is also known as Jeffing. There are a bunch of calculators that you can use online that will help you calculate your run and walking paces and predict your overall time based on those. And run walking can be an efficient way to get even faster in your race, depending on how you want to approach the race strategy. And don't be afraid to play around and practice with different paces in training. I would start off conservatively, but if you do feel like you can run a bit faster, then definitely give it a go. Your training is the perfect practice ground to attempt all these different paces, and that will help you be so much more confident going into race day, knowing your pace. But speaking of training, it's time to lock into a training plan. We recommend giving yourself at least 10 to 12 weeks to train for the half marathon. You don't want to be building up your mileage too quickly, too soon, because you could risk injury. So if you don't run too much at the moment, then make sure you pick a plan that only has a few runs a week to start, preferably with a weekly mileage of what you are already currently doing in week 1 of that plan. You could also choose taking on a longer plan of up to 20 weeks to give yourself more time to train for the half marathon. Additionally, it can give you a couple of weeks off due to injury or illness without taking too much time out of the plan itself. The staple run that you're going to be doing in your half marathon training is the long run. Gradually, week on week, your long runs will be getting longer, but don't worry if you don't end up doing the full distance in training. Sometimes the recovery you need from doing the full distance outweighs the benefits of the training itself. So we recommend doing around 16 to 18 kilometers at most, and don't worry, because the race day atmosphere and the vibes will carry you through on the day itself. Once you've started the plan, try to stick to it and be as consistent as you can with it, as this will really set you up for success on race day. And if you are in need of some more guidance, then why not check out the Running Channel Club, where you can connect with runners who are also training for the same thing and like-minded people, and you can get some additional help and guidance from our presenters. Now practice your fueling, practice your race day outfit, practice your pacing. Think about every element that you're going to go through on race day and do a dress rehearsal. The less things you leave to chance, the better your chances are going to be on race day. This really helped me when I started running because it took race day from being an unknown to something that was basically routine. And also try to run in as many different conditions as you can. This will help your body adapt and mean that nothing can be thrown your way that you are unprepared for on race day. Think about the weather on race day. If there is a chance that it could rain, then make sure that when it does rain during your training, you don't skip those runs. Or if the terrain of the course is hilly, then make sure you incorporate some hills into your training as well. Try to do as much as you can to adapt to race day so you can be as prepped for it as possible. And even if that means your race is abroad in conditions that are very different to what you've been training in, then maybe go out a few days early to help yourself acclimatize to the weather before the race actually starts. Quick question, have you ever seen a video of yourself coming towards the end of a race? You might notice that your form is a lot less efficient, especially when you're getting tired. Your shoulders might hunch over, you might sink down, and your feet could roll in. This could also happen at the end of your training runs. So one way to combat this is to get stronger in the gym. One thing I'd recommend is to build in some strength and conditioning sessions into your half marathon routine. This can be a great way to get you more efficient as a runner and prevent injuries. My top tip for strength and conditioning would be to set yourself a plan the same way you would for running. This will give you purpose and a routine and structure. One thing to have is a list of exercises that you can perform whenever you go to the gym, or you can sign up for a workout class, or you can have a follow-along video at home. This will give you an opportunity to know where to start and when to stop. Tip number 7, be honest. How often do you warm up? And no, that first kilometer in a run does not count. Especially if you're doing longer runs or speed sessions, warming up is so important, and dynamic stretches and strides are a great way to warm up. Check out our videos on the running channel if you want more tips on how to warm up. And while you're there, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Thanks. In addition to warming up, another thing that you can do to prevent muscle soreness or fatigue is to be intentional with your recovery and be active with your recovery as well. So one thing I personally do is foam rolling. Especially when I'm sat down watching TV, I don't just sit still, I try and do something that will aid my recovery. Foam rolling can be a great way to identify any sort of niggles or pains that you might not feel when you're walking or running, but you can definitely feel when you're on a foam roller. Another thing I do is just being active, so I can cycle, walk, or do anything to keep my body moving, as that will help the blood flow around my body and can prevent me from feeling super tight and super sore. All right, we are on the home stretch now. Just 5 more quick tips to give you and then you're all ready for half marathon race day success. Let's talk about nutrition. If nutrition is something you haven't considered before in a race, then a half marathon is definitely the time to start considering race day nutrition. Use training to figure out what works for you. The general guideline is to take 30 to 60 grams of carbs per hour if you are training for longer than an hour. You can take things like gels, gummies, chews, or whatever works for you, or real foods, but use training as a chance to practice what it's like to run while taking on food in the same time. Also think about the food you're having before and after your runs. Make sure you're fueling well before your runs and taking on food quickly after hard sessions to aid with recovery. Carb-rich foods before long runs and race day will help you top up your glycogen stores, which gives you enough energy to run. Taking on carbs and proteins after a run can help give you energy and aid in your muscle repair. Don't forget to hydrate, especially if you're running the half on a hot day. It is very, very crucial to be taking on water as you're running. The other thing you can consider taking is electrolytes, as this will help top up any lost sodium and minerals that you lose through sweating. Now let's talk about sleep. Sleeping is so important to your recovery and has so many benefits, including boosting your immune system and regulating your hormones. So make sure you are getting enough sleep in your training. Sleeping more is the easiest way to improve your running. Me and Anna recently done a video talking about how to get a faster marathon, but in that video we talk about how to improve your sleep, and check out the sleep routine hack in that video because it might help you sleep like a log. Is that funny? Let's talk about tapering. When you're training for a half marathon, your longest run of the block might be a few weeks before your half marathon race day. But why do we do this? Although you might think banking as many miles as you can before race day is the best way to get the most out of your run, it is actually important to reduce your mileage to ensure that you have fresh legs on race day so you don't feel too tired when it comes to the big day. This is one of the biggest differences between training for a 10K compared to training for a half marathon. About 2 weeks out, you want to reduce your mileage by about 75% of your total volume, and about 1 week out, you want to reduce it by about 50% of your total volume. You might still have a hard interval session the week of the race to ensure that you are still training that race pace and it does feel comfortable for you, but your weekly mileage will be reduced so much more so you can be as fresh as possible when you're about to attempt the half marathon. My penultimate tip is to try as much as you can to stick to the plan. When following a plan, it can be so easy to deviate. The runs are hard, your life gets super busy, but do your very best to stick to the plan. You may never have done this distance before, but try not to beat yourself up when things go wrong. One bad training run does not mean that the whole thing will go badly, and you need to understand that not every single run will be perfect. So give yourself some grace. My top tip is to have a routine that will get you out on a run even when you don't want to do it. Maybe have something like a podcast, or go out with friends, or go to your favorite running location. Anything that is guaranteed to get you out the door, even when running is the last thing that you want to do. Right, we've reached the half marathon day, and if you followed along every single step in this video, you will be perfectly ready for the day. The last and final tip I want to give you is just research the course. Make sure you know where your aid stations are, where you're going to see your friends and family, and just enjoy it. Soak up the atmosphere and enjoy race day. Wishing you the best of luck, but if you did enjoy this video and you want to see where Sarah and Jess paced one of our subscribers to their first ever half marathon, then click this video right here.